Welcome to Learn English by Reading. Today, we have a very special story for you. The Fox and the Grapes. This is a simple and fun story that teaches us an important lesson about patience, effort, and pride. In this story, you will meet a clever fox. He is hungry and looking for food. One day, he sees some beautiful, juicy grapes hanging high on a wall. The grapes look delicious, and the fox really wants to eat them. But there is one problem. The grapes are very high, and he cannot reach them easily. The fox tries many times. He runs, jumps, and thinks of clever ways to get the grapes. He works hard, but no matter what he does, he cannot reach them. Along the way, he learns something very important about life and about himself. This story is perfect for beginners because it uses simple words and short sentences. You can listen carefully, read along, and learn new English words while enjoying a fun story. You will also learn how to talk about feelings like hunger, frustration, and pride. So, get ready. Pay attention to the fox, the grapes, and the clever ways he tries to reach them. Try to guess what will happen next. This story is not only fun, but also teaches us a lesson that everyone can understand. Let's begin our story. The Fox and the Grapes. Chapter 1. A Hot Summer Day. It was a very hot summer day. The sun was high in the sky, and there were no clouds anywhere. The ground was dry, and the air felt heavy and warm. The trees stood quietly in the bright sunlight. The leaves looked dusty, and even the birds were too tired to sing. Everything seemed to rest in the heat of the afternoon. In the middle of this hot day, a fox was walking slowly through the forest. His fur was golden brown, but now it looked dusty from the dry ground. The fox's tongue was hanging out, and his mouth was dry. He had been walking for a long time, and he was very tired and hungry. "I wish I could find something to eat," the fox said to himself. "It has been a long day, and I haven't eaten anything since morning." His stomach made a small sound of hunger. He looked around the forest, but there was nothing. No rabbits, no berries, no food at all. The fox continued walking, his paws touching the warm ground. He passed small bushes and tall trees. Sometimes he stopped to listen for sounds, maybe a bird or a mouse, but everything was quiet. The only sound was the soft wind moving through the leaves. He walked past a small stream, but the water was low and dirty. The fox tried to drink, but it didn't taste good. "Even the stream is tired today," he said sadly. He sat down under a tree for a short rest. The shade gave him a little comfort, but he still felt hungry. The fox looked up at the sky. The blue color was deep and clear. "Maybe I should keep walking," he thought. "If I'm lucky, I will find something delicious." So he stood up again and continued his slow walk through the forest. After some time, the trees began to open, and the fox came to the edge of the forest. There was a small path leading to a field. The air smelled sweet there, and the fox lifted his nose to sniff. What is that smell?" he said. It was the smell of ripe fruits, fresh, sweet, and juicy. His mouth started to water. He followed the smell and walked closer to the field. The sun still shone brightly, and the warm wind touched his fur. Then, as he came nearer, he saw a tall stone wall covered with green leaves. The fox stopped and looked carefully. The wall was full of vines, and on those vines hung beautiful bunches of grapes. The grapes were purple and shiny under the sun. They looked soft and full of juice. The fox's eyes opened wide, and his tail started to move with excitement. "Ah, grapes," he said happily. "They look so sweet and tasty. Just what I need on this hot day." He walked closer to the wall and looked up. The grapes were high above his head. "Not too high," he said. "I can jump and get them easily." He smiled and licked his lips. The fox's tiredness began to disappear. Now he felt full of energy because of the thought of food. But before jumping, he sat down and looked again. The grapes looked even better now, round, shiny, and purple like small jewels. "These will be the best grapes I have ever eaten," the fox said. The smell of the fruit filled the air. He could almost taste them. The fox stood up and took a deep breath. "This is my lucky day," he said with a grin. "The forest gave me a gift." He moved a little closer, his eyes fixed on the grapes. The hot day didn't matter anymore. The only thing in his mind was the sweet fruit waiting above him. And so, under the bright summer sun, the hungry fox got ready to jump. His heart was full of hope, and his mouth was full of dreams about the delicious grapes. He didn't know that this day would teach him something important, a lesson that he would remember for the rest of his life. Chapter 2. The Hungry Fox. The sun was still shining brightly, and the forest was quiet. The fox stood near the stone wall, looking up at the grapes. His eyes were full of hope and excitement. He hadn't eaten since morning, and his stomach growled loudly. "I must eat those grapes," he said softly to himself. The fox was not an ordinary animal. He was clever and fast. Many times he had caught rabbits or birds for his dinner. But today was different. It was too hot, and no animals were around. His legs were tired from walking all day, and his throat felt dry. He really needed something to eat, or at least something juicy to refresh himself. He looked up again at the grapes. They were hanging high on the vine, shining in the sunlight. Drops of juice sparkled on their skin. "Ah, they look so good," the fox said. "I can almost taste them already." He licked his lips and smiled. "I must find a way to reach them." The fox looked around carefully. The wall was made of old stones, rough and gray. The vines climbed all the way to the top, and the grapes hung in big purple bunches. He thought for a moment and said, "If I take a few steps back and run fast, I can jump high enough to grab them." He took 3 steps backward, looked up once more, and then ran quickly toward the wall. His legs pushed hard, and he jumped as high as he could. But the grapes were still too high. His paws touched only the leaves, not the fruit. He fell back to the ground with a small thud. The fox sat down for a moment and took a deep breath. He said. "That was close, but not enough. I'll try again." He shook off the dust, stretched his legs, and got ready for another jump. This time he took a longer run and jumped even higher. He stretched his neck and opened his mouth, hoping to catch a grape. But again, he missed. The grapes were just a little higher than he could reach. "Oh, come on," he said in frustration. "Why are they so far away?" The fox looked around for another idea. Maybe he could climb the wall. He put his front paws on the stones and tried to pull himself up, but the stones were smooth and slippery. He couldn't get a good grip. After a few tries, he slid back down again. He sat on the ground and looked up once more. The grapes seemed to be smiling down at him, shining even brighter than before. The fox frowned. "They are teasing me," he said, "just hanging there, laughing at me." His stomach growled again, but the fox was not ready to give up yet. He walked around the wall looking for a lower place. Maybe there was a part of the vine that came closer to the ground. But no, all the grapes were high up, far above his head. The sun felt hotter now, and sweat began to form on his fur. The fox sighed. I must be clever, he thought. I am a fox, after all. There must be another way. He lay down in the shade for a moment, thinking deeply. After a short rest, he stood up again. His eyes were sharp and focused. I will not quit easily, he said proudly. If I jump a few more times, I will surely get them. He took a deep breath and began his next jump. 1, 2, 3. He ran fast and leapt high. But again, his paws missed the grapes by just a few inches. He fell back down and rolled in the dust. Now he was breathing hard, his legs hurt, and his tail was covered with dirt. This is harder than I thought, he said tiredly. But still, he didn't stop. He tried again, jumping and jumping until his legs were sore and his body was shaking. After many tries, the fox sat down once more. His fur was messy, his paws were dusty, and his tongue hung out in the heat. I am so hungry, he whispered, but those grapes are too high. The fox looked up at the sky. The sun was starting to move down, and the air began to cool slightly. I have been trying all afternoon, he said softly. Maybe I need to rest. He lay down under the wall and closed his eyes for a moment. Even though he was tired, he couldn't stop thinking about the grapes. Their sweet smell filled his nose, and his mouth watered again. I will try one more time later, he said before falling into a short nap. And as he slept, the grapes hung quietly above him, shining in the warm light, just out of reach of the hungry fox. Chapter 3. A Walk Through the Forest. The afternoon sun was slowly going down. The light between the trees turned golden, and the shadows grew longer. The fox woke up from his short nap and opened his eyes slowly. He felt a little better, but his stomach was still empty. I must find food, he said quietly. If I stay here, I will just keep thinking about those grapes. He stood up, shook the dust off his fur, and looked around. The wall and the grapevine were still there, full of fruit, shining in the soft light. The fox sighed. Maybe I will come back tomorrow, he said, trying to comfort himself. For now, I should look for something else to eat. So the fox began walking through the forest again. The path was narrow and covered with dry leaves. His paws made a soft sound as he walked. The air smelled fresh now, and a small wind moved through the trees. The forest looked calm and peaceful. As he walked, the fox listened to the sounds around him. He could hear birds singing far away, and sometimes the sound of leaves moving. He saw a squirrel running up a tree and a butterfly flying near a flower. Everyone seems to have something to eat, he thought. Everyone except me. He stopped near a bush and sniffed the ground. Maybe there were berries or small fruits. But the bush was empty. Only a few dry branches were left. The fox sighed again. No luck today. He continued walking. After a few minutes, he reached a small clearing, an open space with grass and sunlight. There was a big tree in the middle, and under it, a few birds were pecking at something. The fox walked closer quietly, hoping to find food. But when the birds saw him, they quickly flew away. He ran to see what they had been eating, but it was only a few dry seeds. Oh no, said the fox sadly. Nothing again. He sat under the big tree to rest. The warm wind moved through his fur, and he felt a little sleepy. He looked up and saw the sky turning orange and pink. "It will be evening soon," he said softly. The forest began to change as the sun went down. The bright colors slowly faded, and the air grew cooler. Small insects started to sing, and fireflies appeared in the air, their lights blinking softly. The fox watched them for a while. "They look like tiny stars," he said. "So pretty, but I can't eat them." He smiled a little at his own joke. Even though he was hungry, he still had a sense of humor. "I must not give up," he told himself. "If I keep walking, maybe I'll find something." He walked deeper into the forest. The trees were taller here, and the path was darker. The fox's sharp eyes could still see in the dim light. He heard a rustling sound nearby and stopped to listen. Maybe it was a small animal. He waited quietly, hiding behind a bush. For a moment, the sound came closer, then stopped. The fox jumped forward quickly, hoping to catch something, but it was only a little rabbit that ran away fast. "Too quick for me," the fox said, breathing hard. "I guess dinner will not come easily tonight." The fox kept walking until he reached a small hill. From there he could see the edge of the forest and a small field beyond it. The moon had started to rise and its silver light covered the ground. It looked calm and beautiful. He sat on top of the hill and looked around. The world was quiet now. The stars appeared one by one, shining softly in the dark sky. "It's strange," the fox said. "Even when I'm hungry and tired, the forest is still beautiful." He lay down on the cool grass and watched the stars. His eyes slowly closed, and he began to think about the grapes again, how shiny and purple they looked in the sunlight. "If only I were taller, or could fly," he whispered with a small smile. The night air felt cool and gentle. The forest was peaceful, and the fox finally started to relax. "Tomorrow," he said softly, "I will try again. I won't give up yet." And with that thought, the hungry fox closed his eyes and fell asleep under the starry sky, dreaming about the sweet, juicy grapes waiting for him on the vine. Chapter 4. The Grapevine on the Wall. The next morning, the forest was full of light. The sun shone through the trees, and the birds sang happily. The air was cool and fresh after the long, hot day before. The fox woke up slowly under the big tree. He stretched his legs and yawned. "Ah, a new day," he said. "Maybe today will be better." His stomach growled again, reminding him that he still hadn't eaten. "Yes, I must find something to eat soon." He looked around the quiet forest. Everything seemed full of life again. Butterflies flew above the flowers, and small insects crawled on the ground. The fox took a deep breath and started walking. As he moved through the forest, he remembered the grapes he had seen the day before. "The grapes," he said suddenly. "They must still be there. Maybe today I'll be lucky." His eyes brightened, and his steps became faster. After a short walk, the fox reached the same place as yesterday. There it was, the tall stone wall covered with green vines and big purple grapes. The sunlight made them shine beautifully. The fox stopped and looked up with a mix of excitement and frustration. "They still look delicious," he said softly, "but they are still too high." He tilted his head and studied the wall carefully. The vines were thick, twisting around each other as they climbed to the top. The grapes hung in bunches, heavy and full of juice. The fox sat down and thought. If only I could climb, he said. But foxes are not good climbers. He looked at the vines again. Maybe if I find a lower branch, I can reach them. He walked slowly around the wall, searching for a spot where the grapes might hang a little lower. Some parts of the wall were covered with leaves, others with flowers, but the grapes always stayed high, just out of reach. The fox sighed. Why do good things always seem so far away? He said. They look so close, yet I cannot reach them. He took a deep breath and decided to try again. He backed away a few steps, looked at the grapes, and ran forward. His paws hit the ground fast, and he jumped high, his mouth opened wide, hoping to bite into the sweet fruit. But again he missed. The grapes moved slightly, and a leaf fell on his nose. The fox landed on the ground, panting. "Oh, come on!" he shouted. "Just a little higher next time." He shook his head and tried again. He ran and jumped again, once, twice, 3 times. Each time he came close, but never close enough. The grapes seemed to laugh at him from above. The fox was getting tired, but his desire grew stronger. "I can do it," he said. "Just one more jump." He ran faster than before and jumped with all his strength. For a moment, he felt as if he could fly. But again his paws touched only the vine, and he fell back down onto the hard ground. He lay there for a few seconds, breathing heavily. The sun was getting hotter again, and sweat covered his fur. Maybe I'm not jumping the right way, he thought, or maybe I'm just too small. The fox looked up again. The grapes looked even more beautiful now, round, purple, shining in the sun. "Why must they hang so high?" he said. "If only I were taller or had wings like a bird." He laughed softly at the thought. "Imagine a flying fox." He sat quietly for a moment, looking at the wall and the vines. He noticed how the sunlight touched the grapes, making them sparkle. The wall looked like a green curtain full of treasures. The fox couldn't help but admire its beauty, but his hunger reminded him why he was there. "I can't just look at them," he said firmly. "I must eat them." He stood up again, ready to make one more attempt. But this time, he didn't rush. He watched carefully, studying the vines. Maybe there was a small rock or branch he could step on to jump higher. He searched around the ground and found a small stone. "This might help me," he said. He pushed it near the wall and stood on it. He looked up again, took a deep breath, and jumped. But the stone moved under his paws, and he slipped. He fell backward and rolled into the dust. "Ah!" he cried. "These grapes are impossible to reach." He sat there for a long time, tired and disappointed. His legs ached, and his tail was dusty again. "Why do I even try?" he whispered. Still, the fox couldn't take his eyes off the grapes. They looked perfect, the kind of fruit that could make anyone happy. He sighed one last time and said, "Maybe I should rest for a while before I try again." The fox lay down under the wall, the smell of sweet grapes filling the air. Above him, the vines moved gently in the breeze, and the grapes shone like jewels. The fox closed his eyes, dreaming of the taste he still couldn't reach. Chapter 5. The Juicy Purple Grapes. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the day grew warmer. The fox sat under the stone wall, looking up at the grapes that shone like little jewels. They looked even more beautiful than before, round, full, and glowing in the bright sunlight. The fox's mouth began to water. "Those grapes are the juiciest fruits I have ever seen," he said softly. They must taste sweet and cool. Just one bite would make me feel better. He licked his lips and smiled. I can almost imagine their taste. Soft skin, sweet juice, and that fresh smell. His eyes sparkled with desire. He stood up and moved closer to the wall. The vines were green and thick, their leaves wide and healthy. The bunches of grapes hung high, heavy and perfect. The fox's heart beat faster. They are waiting for me, he said proudly. I must not give up now. He took a few steps back to get ready. This time, he whispered, I will reach them. He ran fast, his paws hitting the ground strongly, and jumped as high as he could. His eyes closed for a second as he stretched upward, but his mouth caught nothing but air. He landed with a soft thud. Dust rose around him. Again, he said. I was close that time. The fox tried again. He ran faster, jumped higher, and stretched his neck as far as it would go. But the grapes stayed out of reach, swaying gently in the wind as if teasing him. The fox fell back again, breathing heavily. He sat down and looked up angrily. Why are you so high? He said aloud. Do you enjoy watching me fail? He stood up again, not ready to quit. His hunger made him brave. He looked for another spot where the grapes might be lower. He walked along the wall, studying each bunch carefully. Some were smaller, some were higher, but none were close enough. The fox sighed. His fur was dusty, his legs were sore, but the sight of those grapes gave him new energy. They are worth it, he said. I will keep trying until I succeed. He backed away once more, took a deep breath, and jumped again, once, twice, 3 times. Each time he missed, his frustration grew, but he couldn't stop looking at them. The grapes seemed to shine even brighter now. He imagined the taste again, sweet, juicy, and refreshing. Oh, how wonderful they must be, he said dreamily. If I can eat just one bunch, my hunger will go away. But no matter how hard he tried, the grapes stayed out of reach. His energy began to fade. His jumps became weaker, and his breath came faster. I can't reach them, he panted. The fox sat down under the wall. His fur was messy, and his tail was covered with dirt. He looked up again at the beautiful grapes, and for a moment, he forgot his hunger. They are really something special, he said softly. So perfect, so high. Maybe they are not for me. The wind blew gently through the leaves. The sunlight touched the grapes, making them sparkle. The fox stared at them, lost in thought. He wondered how something so small could make him feel so desperate. He smiled weakly. Maybe the grapes like to watch me jump, he said. They must think it's funny. He looked around and saw a bird sitting on the vine. The little bird pecked at one of the grapes, eating it easily. The fox's eyes widened. Hey, that's not fair, he shouted. You have wings. Of course, you can reach them. The bird chirped happily and flew away, leaving the fox even hungrier than before. The fox lay down again and put his head on his paws. If only I could fly, he said quietly. Then I could eat all the grapes I want. He watched the grapes above him once more. The sweet smell filled the air, making him dream of their taste again. They are the most delicious grapes in the world, he whispered. But they don't want me. He closed his eyes and rested for a while. Even though he was tired and hungry, a small part of him still hoped. Maybe one more try, he thought. Just one more. He stood up slowly and looked up again. The purple grapes shone like tiny moons in the sunlight, calling to him silently. The fox smiled sadly. "You are beautiful," he said softly, "but maybe beauty is not meant for everyone." The wind blew once more, and the leaves rustled gently. The fox sat quietly under the wall, looking at the juicy purple grapes, so close, yet forever out of reach. Chapter 6. The fox tries to reach the grapes. The hot afternoon sun shone brightly in the sky. The air was still and quiet. The only sound was the soft rustling of leaves on the grapevine. The fox stood below the tall stone wall, staring up at the grapes once more. He had tried many times, but he still couldn't reach them. His legs were tired, his fur was dusty, and his throat was dry. But even so, the sight of those juicy purple grapes gave him new hope. "I must get them this time," he said to himself. "I've come too far to give up now." The fox took a few deep breaths and stretched his legs. He looked up carefully, studying the distance between the ground and the grapes. "Not too far," he said. "If I run fast and jump high, I can do it." He stepped back, his golden tail moving slowly behind him. His eyes were fixed on the grapes. He crouched low, ready to run. Then, with all his strength, he dashed forward. His paws hit the ground quickly, 1, 2, 3, and then he jumped high into the air. For a moment he thought he could reach them. He opened his mouth wide, hoping to bite the fruit, but his teeth caught only a leaf. The grapes were still just beyond his reach. He fell to the ground with a soft thud. Dust flew up around him. "Oh no," he said in frustration. "I was so close." The fox shook off the dirt and got ready again. "I can do better. I just need to jump higher." He backed away again, breathing hard but determined. The sun burned on his fur, but he didn't care. He ran faster this time, his paws hitting the ground hard. He jumped again, higher than before, but again he missed. The grapes swung gently on the vine, as if laughing at him. The fox landed on the ground, panting. "You think you can make a fool of me, huh?" he said angrily to the grapes. "We'll see about that." He jumped again, and again. Each time his legs grew weaker, and his breath grew shorter. Sweat covered his face, and his tail dragged behind him. Still, he didn't stop. His hunger and pride pushed him to keep going. After many tries, the fox sat down under the wall. His tongue hung out, and his chest rose and fell quickly. "Why can't I reach them?" he said sadly. "They're only a little higher than my head." He looked around for something to stand on. "Maybe a rock or a branch," he said. But the ground was flat and empty. There was nothing that could help. The fox sighed deeply. "Maybe I'm jumping in the wrong way," he thought. He crouched low again, moving his body slowly, trying to find the best position. Then he ran and jumped one more time. This time he got closer. His paw touched one of the grapes, just for a second, before he fell back down again. He looked up quickly. The grapes still hung there, perfect and untouched. "I touched them," he said, a small smile on his face. "I'm getting closer." That small bit of hope made him try again. He jumped once more, but this time his legs were too tired. He barely got off the ground. He tried again, but it was no use. His energy was gone. He sat down again, breathing hard. "I've tried everything," he said softly, "but the grapes are still too high." He looked up at them once more. They glowed softly in the sunlight, moving gently in the breeze. The fox's eyes were tired, but full of longing. "You're beautiful," he said quietly, "but you're also cruel." He lay down on the ground, resting his head on his paws. The warm air surrounded him, and the smell of the grapes filled his nose. "They're right there," he whispered. So close, yet impossible. For a moment he closed his eyes and imagined eating them, the sweet taste, the cool juice, the happiness it would bring. Then he opened his eyes again. The grapes were still high above, just as before. The fox sighed. "Maybe I'm not meant to have them," he said, "but I won't give up so easily." He stood up once more, his legs shaking a little. "I'll rest for a bit," he said. "Then I'll try again. There must be a way." And as he lay down under the grapevine, the wind blew softly through the leaves, whispering in his ears. The grapes swayed gently above him, bright, beautiful, and just out of reach. The fox closed his eyes, dreaming again of success, still believing that one more jump might change everything. Chapter 7. Jumping again and again. The sun was shining brightly above the forest. The sky was blue and the wind was warm. The fox stood once again under the tall stone wall, looking at the grapes that hung high above him. They looked sweet, round, and full of juice. His eyes followed the shining purple color, and his stomach growled loudly. "I will not stop now," said the fox firmly. "I have tried before, but this time I will not fail." He took a few steps back, getting ready for another jump. His tail moved slowly from side to side, showing how focused he was. The air around him felt quiet. Only the leaves moved gently in the wind. He ran forward quickly, his paws hitting the ground hard. Then he jumped with all his strength. For a moment, he was high in the air, almost touching the grapes. But once again, he missed. His mouth closed on nothing but air. He landed back on the ground with a soft thud. The dust rose around him. "No!" he cried. "So close!" The fox shook his head, took a deep breath, and got ready again. "One more time," he said. "I can do it if I don't give up." He stepped back again, looked up carefully, and ran faster this time. He jumped, higher than before, but still the grapes were too far. He hit the wall and fell back, rolling in the dirt. The fox sat up slowly. His legs hurt, and his fur was covered with dust. His heart beat fast from all the jumping. "Why is this so hard?" he said tiredly. "Why do these grapes stay just out of reach?" But he didn't stop. His hunger and pride pushed him forward. "I'm the cleverest fox in the forest," he said. "I will not let a few grapes defeat me." He stood up again, took a deep breath, and tried once more. He ran, jumped, missed. He ran again, jumped again, missed again. Over and over he tried. Each time, he believed it might be the one that worked. After 10 tries, his legs started to shake. His tongue hung out, and his fur was wet with sweat. The fox sat down, breathing hard. "Why can't I get them?" he whispered. "They're only a little higher. Just a little." He looked up again. The grapes hung quietly, moving gently in the soft wind. They looked almost alive, as if they were laughing at his effort. "You think this is funny?" said the fox angrily. "You think I'll give up?" He jumped again, even though his legs hurt. He missed. He tried again, but he was too tired to jump high. His paws barely left the ground. The fox lay down on the ground, panting. "I can't do it," he said softly. "I've jumped again and again, but it doesn't matter. The grapes are still too high." He rolled onto his side and looked up. The sky was clear and bright. The grapes looked even more beautiful now in the sunlight. Their purple color sparkled like small gems. "They are perfect," the fox said quietly. Perfect and impossible. Still, something inside him didn't want to stop. He stood up again, even though his legs were weak. One more time, he said. Just one last try. He backed away, closed his eyes for a second, and took a deep breath. Then he ran faster than ever before. His paws hit the ground hard, and he jumped higher than he ever had. For a brief moment, he felt the wind on his face and the excitement of success. But when he opened his eyes, the grapes were still just above him. He fell to the ground again, harder this time. Ouch! He cried, rubbing his side. He looked up at the grapes, and a small smile crossed his face. You win, he said softly. You win this time. He sat under the wall, tired and dusty. His breath came slowly now. I have jumped again and again, he said, but maybe some things are not meant for me. The fox leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes. The smell of the grapes filled the air, but he didn't move. He was too tired to try anymore. As he rested, a cool breeze blew through the leaves. The vines moved gently, and the grapes swayed above him, shining in the sunlight. The fox smiled weakly. You're still beautiful, he said softly. But maybe you're not worth all this trouble. The wind whispered through the forest, and the fox lay quietly, his eyes half closed. He had tried again and again, but the grapes remained just out of reach. A lesson that he was slowly beginning to understand. Chapter 8. Feeling tired and angry. The fox sat under the tall stone wall, breathing hard. His fur was messy, his legs were sore, and his body was covered with dust. He had jumped again and again, but the grapes were still high above him, shining in the warm sunlight. He looked up once more. The purple grapes hung quietly, looking soft and sweet. The fox's mouth watered just by looking at them. They must be delicious, he thought. If only I could taste them. But he was too tired now. His legs trembled when he tried to stand up. His tail lay flat on the ground, and his ears drooped. The forest around him was peaceful. Birds sang softly, and the wind moved through the trees. Yet the fox felt no peace inside. His heart was full of anger and disappointment. He hit the ground with his paw. It's not fair, he shouted. I tried so many times. I ran, I jumped. I worked so hard. Why can't I reach them? No one answered. Only the leaves rustled gently in the air. The grapes hung silently, as if they didn't care. The fox's eyes grew narrow. He stared at the grapes with frustration. You think you're better than me? He said to them. You stand up there too high for anyone to reach. You think you're special. He walked around the wall, searching for another way to climb up. But the wall was tall and smooth, made of big gray stones. There were no steps, no holes, no easy path. He tried to dig his claws into the cracks, but they slipped out. This wall is too strong, he growled. And these grapes are too proud. He sat down again and sighed deeply. Maybe I'm not as clever as I thought, he said softly. Maybe I'm just a foolish fox who wastes his time. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought about his day. Since morning, he had been walking under the hot sun. He had found no food, no water, and now he had failed to get the grapes. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him how hungry he was. He opened his eyes and looked at the grapes again. They still looked perfect, round, full, and shining with juice. The more he looked at them, the more angry he became. Why do you look so sweet when you are so impossible to reach? He said. You just hang there teasing me." The fox stood up again, trying to calm himself, but his anger only grew stronger. He scratched the ground with his claws. He walked in circles. He looked up and frowned. Finally, he shouted loudly, "I don't want your grapes!" "Who cares about them anyway?" The forest echoed his voice. A few birds flew away in surprise. The grapes, of course, said nothing. They only shone quietly in the sunlight. The fox laughed bitterly. "Ha-ah! Maybe they're not even sweet," he said. "Maybe they're sour." "Yes, that's it. They must be sour. That's why they hang so high. No one wants them." He nodded to himself, pretending to believe his own words. "Why would I eat sour grapes?" he said proudly. "I don't like sour things. I like only the best fruit." The fox lifted his head high and brushed the dust from his fur. He started to walk away slowly, still talking loudly to himself. "I could reach them if I wanted to," he said. "But they're not worth my time. I don't want to waste my energy on sour grapes." Even though he said those words, deep inside, he still felt angry and disappointed. He knew he had failed, but he didn't want to admit it. He wanted to feel strong and proud again. As he walked, the forest around him grew quiet. The birds had stopped singing, and the sound of his paws on the dry leaves filled the air. His body was tired, but his mind was full of thoughts. Why do I care so much about those grapes? He wondered. There must be other food somewhere. I can hunt. I can find berries or a rabbit. I don't need them. He looked back one last time. The grapes still shone brightly in the sunlight, beautiful and perfect. The fox felt a small pain in his heart, but quickly turned away. "Sour grapes," he repeated softly. "Not worth it." He walked deeper into the forest, his tail swaying slowly behind him. The air was cooler under the trees, and the sound of a small stream could be heard in the distance. The fox stopped by the water, bent down, and drank. The cold water felt good. His anger slowly began to fade away, but he still felt a little sad. "Maybe I will try again another day," he whispered. "Or maybe I will just forget about those grapes." He lay down beside the stream, listening to the gentle sound of water and wind. The day was ending, and the orange sun began to sink behind the trees. The fox closed his eyes and sighed softly. "Next time," he said to himself, "next time, I'll be smarter." And as the stars started to appear in the evening sky, the fox finally rested, tired, angry, but a little wiser than before. Chapter 9. Those grapes are probably sour. The fox walked slowly through the forest path, his tail hanging low behind him. The sun was starting to go down, and golden light shone through the trees. The air was still warm, but the fox felt cool inside. He was tired, hungry, and a little embarrassed. He thought again about the grapes on the wall. "I tried so hard," he said softly. "I jumped again and again, but still, I couldn't reach them." His stomach growled loudly, but he ignored it. "I don't care about those grapes anymore," he told himself. "They are not worth it." He stopped walking for a moment and looked back in the direction of the vineyard. In his mind, he could still see the tall wall, the shining grapes, and the sunlight falling on them. They looked so juicy, so delicious, but he quickly shook his head. "No," he said aloud, "they are probably not even sweet. They must be sour." The fox laughed a little, trying to sound confident. "Yes, that's right," he said. "Those grapes are probably sour and unripe, They may look nice, but they taste bad. I didn't want them anyway." He nodded proudly to himself as he walked. Each time he said those words, he felt a little better. "Why would I want sour grapes?" he said again. "I only eat the best fruits. I'm a clever fox, not a fool." He walked further into the forest, repeating the same words over and over. "Those grapes are sour. Those grapes are sour." But deep inside, he knew that wasn't true. He had wanted those grapes more than anything. Still, saying they were sour made him feel less sad. It helped him forget the feeling of failure. As he walked, he met a little rabbit on the path. The rabbit looked at him curiously and said, "Hello, Mr. Fox. Why do you look so tired? Have you been hunting?" The fox smiled proudly. "Oh, no," he said. "I wasn't hunting. I saw some grapes on a wall, but I decided not to eat them." "Not to eat them?" the rabbit asked. "Why not? Don't you like grapes?" The fox lifted his head high. "Those grapes looked nice," he said, "but I could tell they were sour. I don't eat sour grapes." The rabbit blinked. "Oh, I see," it said softly. "That makes sense." The fox smiled, pleased that the rabbit believed him. "Yes," he said, "I could have jumped and reached them easily if I wanted to. But what's the point of eating bad fruit?" The rabbit nodded, even though it didn't really understand. "Well, I hope you find something else to eat," the rabbit said kindly. "Oh, I will," said the fox confidently. "I always find what I need." Then he walked away quickly, his tail swishing behind him. He didn't want anyone to know how hard he had tried or how badly he had failed. As he moved deeper into the forest, he started to feel a little lighter. He began to whistle softly. "Those grapes are sour," he sang to himself. "Too sour for me." The trees around him were quiet, and the sound of the forest slowly returned, birds singing, leaves moving gently, and a stream bubbling nearby. The fox started to forget about the grapes. He looked around for other food. He sniffed the ground, searched under bushes, and looked up into the trees. He found a few berries and ate them quickly. They were not as sweet as the grapes, but at least they stopped his hunger. When the moon rose above the trees, the forest turned silver and calm. The fox lay down under a tree to rest. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Those grapes were sour anyway." He closed his eyes, trying to believe his own words. "It's better this way," he said. "I didn't fail. I just didn't want them." The night breeze blew softly through the leaves, and the forest was peaceful again. The fox sighed and smiled weakly. The next morning, when the sun rose, the fox woke up feeling a little better. The memory of the grapes was fading slowly, but his lesson stayed with him. Sometimes, when he passed near a vineyard again, he looked at the high grapes and smiled. "I know your trick," he said quietly. "You look sweet, but I know you're not worth the trouble." And then he would walk away proudly, pretending that he didn't care at all. But deep inside his clever heart, the fox knew the truth. He hadn't reached the grapes not because they were sour, but because they were just too high. Yet he chose to believe his own story because it made him feel strong again. As he disappeared into the forest, his voice could be heard faintly in the distance. "Those grapes are probably sour." Yes, very sour indeed. And the echo of his words danced through the trees, carried away by the wind, a proud fox hiding his disappointment with clever words. Chapter 10. The Lesson About Pride. The sun rose slowly over the forest, painting the sky with orange and pink colors. The fox woke up under a tree, feeling rested but still thoughtful. He remembered the tall stone wall and the grapes he had tried so hard to reach. He walked slowly toward the edge of the forest, thinking about everything that had happened. "I really wanted those grapes," he said quietly to himself. "I ran, jumped, and tried many times, but I couldn't reach them." The fox stopped for a moment and looked back in the direction of the grapevine. The grapes hung high, shining in the sunlight, just as perfect as before. He sighed deeply. "Maybe I should admit the truth," he whispered. He thought about what he had told himself and the rabbit the day before. "I said the grapes were sour," he said softly. "But I only said that because I didn't want to feel like a failure. I wanted to protect my pride." The fox walked further into the forest, his tail low, and his ears drooped a little. "I thought I was clever," he said. "I thought I could get anything I wanted if I tried hard enough. But sometimes, no matter how clever or strong we are, we can't reach everything." He remembered his many jumps and the way his legs had hurt. He remembered the dust on his fur and the heat of the sun. He remembered the small taste of hope each time he jumped and the disappointment when he fell. "Yes," he said to himself, "I learned something important. Pride can make us feel brave, but it can also stop us from seeing the truth. I wanted the grapes so badly that I pretended they weren't worth it when I failed. That was my pride speaking." The fox stopped by a small stream and bent down to drink some water. The cool water refreshed him, and he felt calmer. "It's okay to want something," he said softly. "It's okay to try hard. But it's also okay to admit when we cannot reach it." He lay down by the stream and watched the sunlight sparkle on the water. The grapes were far away now, and he didn't think about them as much. Instead, he thought about all the other food he could find: berries, rabbits, and nuts. "I don't need to waste my energy on things I cannot have," he whispered. "But I can learn from the experience. I can try new ways and be clever in other things." The fox thought about the rabbit he had met and how proud he had tried to appear. "Sometimes pride makes us lie to others, and even to ourselves," he said. "But the truth is important. The lesson is more important than the grapes." He stood up, feeling taller and wiser. "Next time," he said, "I will remember this. I will try my best, but I won't let my pride trick me. I will accept when I can't reach something and learn from it." The fox walked slowly back into the forest, feeling calm and proud in a new way. His legs no longer ached as much, and his heart felt lighter. The grapes were still there, shining in the sunlight, but now they were just grapes. Nothing more. He smiled to himself. "They are beautiful, but they are not everything," he said. "There are many things in the forest to enjoy, and I will enjoy them without letting pride fool me." The birds sang in the trees, and the wind moved gently through the leaves. The forest was alive and peaceful. The fox felt part of it all, calm, clever, and wiser than before. He knew that he would remember this day forever. The grapes had taught him something more important than their taste. They had taught him about pride, patience, and understanding. The fox stretched his legs and shook the dust from his fur. He looked at the sky and smiled. "I may not have eaten the grapes," he said softly, "but I have learned a valuable lesson, and that is better than any fruit." The sun rose higher, and the forest grew bright. The fox walked on, happy and free, knowing he would never forget the day of the grapes and the lesson about pride that they had taught him. And from that day on, whenever he saw fruit hanging high in the vineyard, he remembered, it is okay to try, it is okay to fail, but it is important to be honest with yourself. The clever fox, wiser than before, disappeared into the forest, ready for new adventures, new challenges, and new lessons. Thank you for reading and listening to The Fox and the Grapes. We hope you enjoyed following the clever fox and his adventures in the forest. In this story, the fox wanted the juicy grapes very badly. He ran, jumped, and tried many times to reach them. But no matter how hard he worked, the grapes stayed out of reach. At first, he was frustrated and angry. Then, to feel better, he said the grapes were probably sour. This story teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes we cannot get everything we want. It is okay to try our best, but it is also important to accept when things are too difficult or impossible. Pride can make us feel strong, but it can also make us hide the truth from ourselves. By reading this story, you can also learn simple English words about feelings, actions, and nature. Words like hungry, jump, tired, proud, sour, clever, and forest appear many times in the story. Listening and reading at the same time can help you remember these words better. Remember, learning English is like the fox trying to reach the grapes. Sometimes it is hard, and you may not get everything right the first time. But every step, every try, is a lesson. Keep reading, keep listening, and keep practicing. We hope this story helped you enjoy learning English and also taught you something about patience and pride. See you in the next story, and remember, keep trying, stay clever, and always learn from every experience.